On the 15th day of Christmas? 15th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me climate crisis anxiety. Happy Friday, what a topic. Happy Podmas, bitches. I'm scrolling TikTok at 3 a.m. because my nervous system's too fucked to go to sleep and I feel too anxious to put my phone down. Is that why I'm having an existential crisis? There are always going to be a million other things you could have decided to do. I'm broken. Goodness, it is nearly Christmas, and you know what that means? Anxiety over the environment. Nothing breeds overconsumption and buying unnecessary stuff. Not S-H-I-T. This is going to be a brand-friendly episode. We are working to be brand-friendly, and I am trying with all of my might to not swear so I can be a brand-friendly gal. What was I saying? Nothing breeds climate anxiety than the season of overconsumption. There's pressure on both sides. There's pressure to have all of this cool Christmas stuff. I bet your timelines are inundated with things that you should buy for Christmas, gifts that you should buy for Christmas, everything that you should buy for everything. I mean, our timelines are constantly filled with that. Stuff that we should buy for whatever reason. And so you feel the pressure for that, but then you also feel the pressure to not buy things because you're like, I want to be an eco queen. I want Greta Thunberg to be proud of me. I don't want to buy things and ruin the environment for my grandchildren. It's like, where is the happy medium? Fortunately, I've been on both of those sides in their extremes, and I feel like I found a happy medium. So let's talk about it. But first, we need to do our check-in. Where is the check-in jar? Here it is. There's only one thing left in the check-in jar. Do you know what that means? You need to submit your prompts. What prompts do you want me to answer in the final 9 days of Podmas? 9, I think, is right. If you have questions, what is your favorite journal prompt? Submit it in the form in the description. Otherwise, this podcast will fail. We won't have any more check-ins. Everyone will hate the podcast. Everyone will stop listening. I will fail. My life will fail. And it will be your fault. And you could solve it with a simple journal prompt. I don't make the rules. Okay, let's do the check-in, shall we? Happy Friday. Wait, this one we've already had. Okay, the last check-in question must have been already put in because I've already answered this one on Podmas. What are we going to do? Instead of answering the same question that we've answered before, I'm going to go on my journal prompt Pinterest board and I'm going to find one for myself because you guys have failed me. No, I'm just kidding. Love you. But seriously, submit a prompt. Okay, journaling. I'm just going to scroll and the first one I find, I'm going to click on. Okay, click. First question. Oh my God. Okay, this is why we don't do it like this because it cuts too deep to the core and I need to plan them first. The first one, I swear to you, the first question that came up is, what emotional memories do you still need to heal? What emotional memories do you still need to heal? That is deep. Okay, what emotional memories do I still need to heal? Do you know, interestingly, a memory that comes up, and I'm not going to overanalyze this. I'm not going to analyze it at all, actually. I'm just going to share with you what came up when I thought about this, and then maybe afterwards I'll do some deeper journaling into it. I have a memory from when I was younger. I'm in my front garden. I am playing with my friends and I'm upset about something. And I am being told to come inside. Like my mum told me to come inside for something. And I'm crying at this point because I don't want to come inside. My friends are all there. My sisters are outside, I think. And I'm screaming, crying, and I'm telling my mum, like, no, I'm not coming inside. I want to stay inside. I'm obviously being a bit of a brat, not listening to my mum. Sorry, mum. She comes out into the front garden, grabs me and pulls me inside. And I'm screaming, crying because she's pulling me inside. And I look at all of my friends and they're all laughing. They're all laughing at me because I'm being dragged in by my mum. And I don't know what that means for that to come up immediately, but maybe that's an emotional memory I need to heal. That was fun. Okay, guys, I need you to help me fill in the jar because I can't be freeballing these questions, okay? That was too deep, too much, too scary. Hopefully tomorrow the jar will be full with prompts again. It's up to you. Okay, let's talk about consuming things, okay? This isn't going to be like education on the climate crisis. This is more like my experience with conscious consumerism and kind of my awakening into the fact that the amount of stuff that we buy is kind of ruining the planet and my relationship to that. So my journey of this is for a few years, for like 2 full years, was pretty much waste free. I was definitely plastic free. and tried to be as waste-free as possible. Like I wouldn't buy a single plastic thing. Nothing I bought was in plastic. No food was in plastic. I went to a zero waste shop to buy all my groceries. I wouldn't buy takeaways. I wouldn't buy anything that you couldn't recycle. And even that, I would try not to buy anything with any form of packaging, even if it could be recycled, because recycling is such a farce and so much of what we think we recycle actually just goes in the regular bin. I just went so far into the waste-free, plastic-free cycle. I didn't buy clothes. I didn't buy anything. And it felt really good. Like it felt really good to be doing something great. I felt very validated. I felt really vindicated when people would buy their like pasta in a plastic bag. And I was like, I'm better than you because I don't buy single-use plastic. And it was great for a while. A few years into that though, I started to feel like I was suffocating because I felt like I couldn't do anything. What we don't realize is everything in our lives is in packaging and plastic. And I just found it, I found it really stressful. I felt everything I bought, like if I had to buy something in, even if it was in like a paper bag or something that could be recycled, I felt this immense sense of guilt. It felt like every single thing that I bought was me destroying the planet bit by bit. I felt so much, I mean, they're calling it like eco-doom or like eco-anxiety. I felt so much guilt for everything I did. Every time I got in a car, every time I booked a flight anywhere. I mean, obviously flying is horrendous for the planet, but every time I did anything, I couldn't do anything with like a sheer amount of guilt. Christmas was awful for me because I would just watch everyone buy things. And one, I felt like I couldn't buy things. So I did feel left out. I know that's like seems kind of an infantile way to describe it, but I felt like left out. I felt left out of things. I didn't buy takeaways. I felt like I couldn't enjoy anything with friends. Like friends would buy things and I wouldn't be able to join in. There was just so many small things that just made it very stressful. I also found it way more expensive because unless you want to buy nothing, and like you can buy groceries in a supermarket plastic free, and that's relatively cheap, you know, like potatoes, carrots, vegetables, fruit, like that all comes plastic free. But if you want to buy anything fancy, not plastic free, or anything like pasta, rice, beans, which are normally very cheap, if you want to buy it plastic free, it's going to cost you 5 times the price. That kind of restriction, in a strange way, also triggered my kind of history with food restriction and eating restriction because it was so centered around food. So much of food I didn't buy anymore because I couldn't find it plastic free. I didn't buy chocolate because it had foil inside, like a lot of chocolate is foil lined, and cardboard I could recycle, but foil doesn't really get recycled. I just created all these really weird rules for myself looking back because obviously cardboard can be recycled. Foil can be recycled. But in my mind, I was like, I can't buy these things. And that felt like such a restriction on my life. It made me so stressful and miserable. And it almost made me like want to defy it. You know, when you're told you can't do something and you want to do it like a child? I don't necessarily feel that way about most things, but this I did. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I felt like I couldn't do anything that I liked. And I think the main thing that I took away from why I found it so hard is because nobody else around me was doing it. If I was surrounded by people that were also doing it, I think it would have been more fun. But I was the only person in my friendship group that was kind of doing this. And so I just felt really restricted and I felt really just stressed all the time. I felt like I stressed about everything I purchased, everything anyone else purchased. All I thought was, we are ruining the environment, and it was miserable. Slowly, I started incorporating stuff back in. I would buy the occasional coffee in a takeaway cup if I forgot my reusable cup, and sometimes I would use a paper straw, and I started buying pasta in a bag, in a plastic bag. And I just kind of like let go of some of the very strong rules I had for myself, and it made life a lot better. So I've been thinking a lot about like how we can balance this, because I feel like a very, very common statement is we need a lot of imperfect people doing a bit than a few perfect people doing it perfectly. I feel like it's probably a more concise statement, but you get the gist. And I used to think, like, when I was like the perfect plastic-free queen, I used to think that is an excuse for people to be lazy and not put in as much effort. And that was crazy. Like, that was the kind of standard that I held myself to. When I do things, I like to do them wholeheartedly. But I think a few years later, like coming out of that and kind of finding a kind of sustainable footing for me, because sustainability for the planet also requires it to be sustainable for you. If I could be like a perfect plastic-free person, if I didn't buy a single plastic thing for 1 year versus reducing my plastic consumption by 85% for the entirety of my life, overall in my lifetime, I'm gonna save a lot more plastic from going into landfill if I'm imperfect than if I try and do it perfectly for a year and then quit because it's too much. And so sustainability, it needs to be sustainable for you as well. That is kind of the idea that I've come upon. There's no point in doing something that isn't sustainable for you, because if it's not sustainable for you, then you won't do it. And for it to have a benefit, you have to do it. Another thing that I realized is it can't just come from the individual. Your singular perfect actions on your own as a standalone person are not going to be the tipping point of whether the planet, or not the planet because the planet will survive, whether the human race will continue to exist on this planet. You know, if you go to a coffee shop and you forget your cup, so you buy it in a takeaway cup that has to go in the bin, that is not going to be the deciding factor as to whether the human race ceases to exist on this planet or not. But the other side of this is that if every single person thought that way, and if everybody did nothing because they felt like their own individual choices didn't make a difference, then nothing would ever be done. And so it's about finding this happy medium, I have found, of doing the things that you know make a difference and that feel important to you, but not having to be perfect 100% of the time. And so what has really helped me, like, negate some of this kind of eco doom and this eco anxiety and allow it to feel like this fun, empowering thing. Because realistically, in an ideal world, we would all appreciate and understand the gravity of the situation. Like, the human race cannot survive on a planet that is however many degrees hotter. I am not a woman in STEM. I do not know the statistics, but we cannot survive. There will be natural disasters. We will not be able to inhabit a world in those uninhabitable conditions that will be caused by this climate crisis. And so in an ideal world, we would all be able to comprehend the gravity of that, and we would all make astronomical changes in our lives, and we would put so much pressure on big corporations, and the people in big corporations would realize the gravity of the situation and they would do something about it, and everything would be righted with the world again. Unfortunately, that is not the human condition. Like, we are inherently selfish beings. We almost need a personal vested interest. I mean, the irony isn't lost on me that our biggest interest should be our own survival, but we forget about that, okay? We need like a personal interest, and something that can really help you stay personally interested and invested in kind of being a conscious consumer is enjoying it and making it fun and feeling like a fun change. And so instead of trying to be perfect in every area and trying to be plastic free and waste free and not buy anything brand new and not drive a car and not fly anywhere and not have children, and instead of trying to do everything, pick the areas that you gravitate towards and try and do them as well as you can. And so for me, fast fashion was always a huge one. Like, as soon as I started learning about the fast fashion industry, that was something that I've always felt very, very drawn towards. And then like food waste. Like, I think food waste is the epitome of privilege. I lived with a girl once. This has stuck with me. I probably lived with her 5 years ago. And she said to me, she likes throwing away food because it makes her feel abundant. She likes throwing away food because it makes her feel abundant. And that was crazy to me, because I think that is the epitome of privilege. The amount of people that go hungry, the amount of people that literally die of starvation, and you're out here throwing away food because it makes you feel abundant. That makes me feel sick. But it's also like food waste. When we throw away food waste, it is so detrimental to the environment. Those two things I've always felt very personally connected to them. So those are the things that I really try and do as well as I can. And so if I'm like cutting up vegetables, I try and keep the scraps to one side and make like a broth out of them. I am like the queen. I wouldn't say I was a good cook, but I am very good at taking ingredients from a cupboard that are about to go bad and turning them into a meal. And so that's really fun for me. Like, always emptying the fridge, never throwing away food, always only buying what I need or things that I know I'm going to use, making sure I freeze things, batch making things and putting meals in the freezer. That I've always felt very connected to. Using apps like Too Good To Go. Restaurants put up their food that's going to go to waste and you can go and collect it for a cheaper price. Things like that. That's really fun for me. And then fast fashion is also a big one. Like, I love thrifting and buying secondhand clothes. Like I love buying clothes on Vinted and Depop and reseller websites. If you guys want to sponsor me, you are my dream sponsors. Like anything to do with sustainable fashion, spending a little bit more money and buying less clothes from sustainable brands. And I know that is a very privileged position to be in, and some people just don't have the capacity to spend money on more expensive garments, and that is totally fine. I do understand that fast fashion is a privilege issue, but because it's something I feel very connected to, I try and buy from companies that I feel are really doing great things in the slow fashion industry. This jumper is from Tala. They are trying to rival big brands like Lululemon and Alo Yoga that don't make sustainable clothing. Tala are trying to make sustainable clothing at the same or lower price point sustainably. And so supporting companies like that, I absolutely love. And that's something that feels very empowering and fun for me. And when I wear their clothes, I feel proud to wear their clothes. Just stuff like that, like finding the things that you feel very connected to and doing those, knowing you can't be perfect. Also knowing that it can't just come from the individual. Okay, so like take some of the onus off of yourself. Your individual actions won't make a difference. If you and every single person in your country made changes, it would make a difference. But it also has to come from top down. It has to come from big corporations. Like you not buying a plastic straw is going to make very little difference when there are companies like Shell and BP contributing to like a third of the world's gas emissions. I have no idea if that is a correct statistic or not. That just came out of my mind. There are enormous corporations doing damage on a level that you never could. And so finding a way to support organizations that challenge those. There are charities that do that. There are charities that work against big companies like Shell and big oil companies. There are companies that are trying to find alternative energy sources so we don't have to use oil. Investing in them when you have your stocks and shares portfolio set up, when you set up your ETFs, making sure you're investing in sustainable companies. When you build your portfolio, don't invest in like big tech, big oil companies. Invest in smaller companies. Make a green portfolio. Different investment platforms have the option to create green portfolios. Even things like, this is not financial advice, but stocks and shares ISAs. So many companies that allow you to set up stocks and shares ISAs have the option for green ISAs. And so investing in stuff like that makes a huge difference because money matters. Money is the driver of all of these things. Buying from and supporting companies that can make a bigger difference, that are rivaling these bigger problem companies, and then knowing that you can just do as much as you can, like knowing that you are not going to be the be and end all, doing it imperfectly and still letting yourself buy the cute Christmas tree decorations, you know, buying your Christmas pajamas occasionally, you know, like you don't have to be perfect. The world doesn't need perfect people. It just needs a lot of imperfect people doing as much as they can. This is my way to negate the guilt that I feel about buying a few things over Christmas. Although I've tried to be quite reserved because I'm probably going to go traveling next year and I don't need a load of Christmas tat, but two, the environment. I hope that was interesting. That was a bit of a different episode. Just felt like interesting to talk about. Being a conscious consumer is something that is very important to me, and it's something that kind of plagues my life in every decision I make, in good and bad ways. Like it's just something that's always on my mind, like buying things consciously, not impulse buying anything, making sure I think about every single purchase. I never impulse buy. You will, if you know me, you know I'm not an impulse buyer. It will take me 2 weeks to decide if I'm going to buy something or not. So it plagues my life, and I guess that's probably a good thing. We're getting to the end of Podmas. If you have any topic requests for the rest of Podmas, let me know because we've only got 9 days left. Okay, I'm going to go and edit this episode. Love you loads. I'm sorry about the lighting in this episode. The lights turned off and I did not charge it. So love you loads. See you tomorrow. Mwah.